Good morning, everybody. How are you this week? Today is a very special day, or rather, yesterday, if you're watching this on Sunday. This week marks the 19th anniversary of my ordination. 19 years. Doesn't time fly when you're having fun? I was very fortunate in my first post in my curacy to have a wonderful training incumbent, Phil, and his wife, Sandy, who welcomed me in. From day one until today, really, they have never ceased to be hospitable. They have never ceased to offer a welcome, and not just to me, but to anyone they met. The open house that I have a couple of times a year was something that they did. And their policy, no matter how much it intruded on their private lives, was that the rectory should be a safe place and a safe haven. I could tell endless stories of their welcome and the welcome of so many others throughout my ministry and my life. And I hope that I've learnt to reflect that model of welcome and hospitality in my own life, in my own home. It would be so easy today to talk about what we mean by welcome and hospitality. Most of the time, when we talk about it, we actually are speaking about welcoming people into our own space. So when we talk about churches, we talk about offering a welcome to those who come in. If you're in the hospitality industry, you work in a hotel or a B&B, and again, you're welcoming people in. Whether it's a hotel, our own home, or the church, we are taught to turn the lights on, to open the doors wide, and to welcome people in, to make them feel comfortable in our place. And that's a worthwhile thing to do. But that's not what today's gospel reading is about. In today's gospel reading, Jesus doesn't instruct his disciples to welcome people in. Instead, he sends the disciples out. Instead of telling them to provide hospitality to strangers, he tells them to receive hospitality from the world. Now, today's reading continues on from last Sunday. Jesus sends out his 12 disciples, telling them to go from town to town, to travel without money or supplies, to depend on the kindness of strangers. Instead of offering hospitality, Jesus expects and tells his disciples, his followers, to go out and receive hospitality. Now, I don't know about you, but generally I prefer to be the welcomer, the host, than to be the one being welcomed. I know it's a little silly, but I'm always slightly afraid that I might be assuming a welcome that does not exist, that I've invaded someone's space, that I'm only there out of politeness. Now, leaving aside what that says about my own ego, receiving hospitality can be slightly risky, can't it? Can you imagine turning up and being faced with tripe and onions? Sorry if you like tripe and onions, I hate them. Or what happens if your meal is undercooked or flambéed or just completely inedible? My mother's advice would be to the cook to always make sure that there are a couple of cans of soup in the cupboard. But when you're the one being welcomed, you're not in control. You don't get to choose what you eat or where you sleep. It might even mean that you find yourself in an unsafe situation. How many of us would, without a second thought, accept the hospitality of a free drink in the pub from a stranger? Probably not me. Jesus warns his disciples about the dangers of depending on hospitality. He warns them that they will not always be welcomed. In fact, they may be hated, persecuted, even killed on account of Jesus. And it's worth remembering that in the times of Jesus, there were certain rules about hospitality that don't exist today. And yet, there were still dangers inherent. The Gospel reading today talks about an alternative, Jesus says, "Whoever welcomes you welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me." So while Jesus does give you warnings about what might happen if you're not found acceptable, he does say that if you follow him, if you're a disciple, the world might reject you on his account. He also says sometimes the world will welcome you on his account. Anyone who welcomes a disciple welcomes Jesus himself. Now, later in the Gospel of Matthew, in Matthew chapter 25, there's another story by Jesus about welcome. In that passage, Jesus teaches us that showing kindness, providing hospitality to strangers, is the same as giving kindness and hospitality to Jesus himself. He says if we want to see Christ in the world, we only have to look at our neighbours. We will see his face in the faces of the people around us. When we care for them, we are caring for Christ. Matthew 10 stands that on its head. Whoever welcomes you welcomes me. We find Christ in the world, and the world finds Christ in us. These two passages show us the two sides of hospitality. Our calling to provide hospitality to the stranger, and the challenge of accepting hospitality from the world. We are called not only to provide a welcome, to accept a welcome. We have to be willing to receive hospitality as well as give it. And that can be difficult. Jesus said, "Whoever welcomes you welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me." So let's take a chance and let the world welcome Jesus through us. Amen.